All right, MrSotko here, and welcome to Hearts of Iron 4. And this is going to be kind of a tutorial slash playthrough. And because I know a lot of people are kind of overwhelmed by this game, and there is a lot to it. But we're going to get right into it. And I'm going to be Argentina, and Argentina is pretty nice. They got a lot of provinces, and they're sort of out away from the main fighting, so you can get a lot done over here. It's kind of a good starter country, to be totally honest. And but we're going to be playing as them. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my units here, just these regular units. I'm going to get rid of them, and which seems weird, but it's going to give me some of my equipment back because I want to use Mountaineers. Mountaineers are special units. They have a little bit less health than regular infantry, but they're exceptional at dealing with mountainous terrain, and there is a lot of that in South America. As you can see, it goes all the way up there, the Andes and such. And in Brazil, however, that's a different story, but we deal with that another time. And so we're going to use Mountaineers to essentially overrun Chile at first, because if you go to your resource tab, which is down here, you can see all the resources on the map that the various countries have that you could have should you take them over. And Chile has 24 steel, which is very, very, very essential for all of my equipment making needs. And so we go back to the default map mode. And first thing, we'll just grab both of these, and we'll make an army real quick. So you grab some units, and then you hit that button there. And you click Assign a Commander. Really, the only commander viable here right now is this guy. A Field Marshal is able to control all of your units, no matter the capacity. And the but they don't really... when you promote one to a field marshal, they lose a level, and they don't gain skills very well. And so you kind of want to avoid field marshals if you can. So this is just a general here. He is level 3, so he gives me 15% attack, 15% defense to all the troops in that army. And he also has a few of these little things here. One is urban, so when I'm in a town, I do more damage, defense, yada yada. When I attack a fortressed area, we'll gain 20%. And Santiago has a fortress, so he's the perfect candidate right now. Also, generals can learn more of these little badges, these awards, if you will, medals. If you fight in the mountains a lot, you'll get a mountain one. If you fight in the forest a lot, you'll get a forest one. You can get recon ones. You can get all kinds of different ones. And so when you actually have a bunch of mountaineers in an army and you get the mountaineer bonus, that's huge, because you get the mountaineer bonus. Then you get maybe even if you're fighting in a city and you make it to a city, you get that bonus too. But the mountain bonus is great, especially combined with the actual attack and bonuses of the general. So we made that a general. Generals can only hold 24 units, though, in an army, divisions, whereas a field marshal can hold all of them. But there is negative things about field marshals. So one of the first things you want to do is to start a national focus. So just click on here, national focus. Right now, this tree is the basic tree that just basic nations get. But the major nations like America, Germany, Britain, Canada, or excuse me, not Canada, but Russia, they get entirely different ones, and they're more complicated. Not really entirely complicated, like you couldn't figure them out, but they're just more complicated based on history of what they could attack or what they could have done in history, whereas these didn't have much of a role in the war, so they just get the default template. But I actually like the default template better in most cases. I think it's great. We're going to start with political power. That gives us 120 political power when it is done. And we'll use that to get stuff down here, which we don't have any right now. And then another thing you want to do, you want to go to your research tab. You always want to keep this going. That's a big important part of the game here. And I like to get, in the engineering tab, I like to get this, negative 2% research time. That's good. That's good in the long run. The earlier you get this tree here with all this research time, reduction is better because in the long game, you're going to be researching a long time with all of these. So I like to start with that. And then I like to go to the industry tab and start my production efficiency. Production efficiency, kind of get into later, but it basically means you can make more stuff over time. You start to get more and more efficient at making a particular rifle or a particular tank, and you'll make more per day. As you can see, this is the efficiency tab here, and that's my max efficiency. And really, I'm only right here. So I'm making 9.2 a day. And once the game gets started, that'll actually start going up as my efficiency goes up, but it's paused right now. The game starts paused. I do not need interwar fighters at the beginning, so I'm going to get rid of those. Some nations do, so don't always necessarily do that. I just basically, what I did there is I just consolidated this armada here, if you will, of my navy, so that way I can add a naval commander, and he has blockade runner, there's a retreat chance, and a fleet speed while retreating. So it doesn't lose as many ships. So we'll assign an admiral to that, and then we'll do navy later. These videos will probably be about 20-minute segments, because that seems usually fairly reasonable amount of time, you know, that somebody has to spend on watching a video and such. But I mean, either way, it's got to be some kind of timeline or another. And so yeah, moving on. So let's start the game now. And at first you can pretty much go to 5 speed. Actually, we're gonna bring it down just a little bit because we want to recruit and deploy. And since these hold 24 men, we want to fill that up. There are negative things to having way too many units in the templates of units that you're going to be making. But basically, you have these unit templates, and these are just regular soldiers. But these are the mountaineers that I want to be making. And as you can see, they have the adjusters down here. And in hills and in mountains, you gain big bonuses to your attack. As you can see, 35, 10. These are all bonuses with the plus symbol. And there is going to be a lot of mountain fighting in South America, of course, because of the Andes. So we want a lot of those. So we want to train them. And if you hit this again, you'll actually make a completely different set of them, and you really don't need to do that. So you can just kind of do that. You really don't need to do that right away. Like later on, you might find better uses for that. But basically, so just train one and then add units. And you can see the number, they're numbered down here. So I'm just going to add it all the way to 22. And then you got to set their location. So just set their location wherever. It's got to be in your home base, though. Even when you take over another territory, you always have to set units back in your home territory. And so they are going to spawn there, but they have to train and they have to acquire all the equipment. See, these ones have all the equipment. These ones don't, but they have the manpower. See, manpower is 3,000, so I have the men for that. But the problem is I don't have the guns, so I'm producing 6,700 guns that I need. So I'm just constantly producing infantry equipment. If I don't need the equipment and I'm producing it, it will actually get stockpiled in your logistics tab. And you can click on infantry equipment. And it'll show basic equipment and advanced equipment like as you tech up. And you'll always keep your old basic equipment in case your soldiers need that. Or you're running out of weapons, which you lose in combat and such. So I don't have any stored right now. My weekly production is only 68. So I have a long way to go in that sense. I have a free factory that I can assign to this and increase the production. Problem is I don't have the steel. I have 0 steel right now. As I'm using it all on these two. So if I do that, I'll actually, it'll be detrimental to both my artillery and my infantry equipment because I won't actually have the needed amount. And it will still produce them, but it will produce them at a very low rate. And it will also slow my efficiency cap as well. And it will slow the, as it says there, 1.7% per week. And it will actually slow that down pretty dramatically if you don't have the required materials. And so we'll speed it back up again to the 5 mark, and eventually we're going to get Santiago here. Santiago actually has a couple forts. You can see down here, if you click on Santiago, it has 1 fort, and forts basically give a 15% defense modifier per fort. You can have up to 10 of them in a small little region like so, and if you have 10, it's basically undefeatable. It's very hard to defeat it. You have to hit it with air power and hit it with troops over and over and over to defeat it. And so it's a good way, but they take forever to build. Another thing that I just forgot to do is build civilian factories. So you want to go to constructions, because your trade here, I need steel to continue making, so I could import from the United States, but when I do that, it requires a civilian factory, and civilian factories are very important as they build everything faster. The more civilian factories you have, the faster civilian factories build. The more civilian factories you have, the faster military factories build, naval dockyards build, the faster you repair, the faster you build infrastructure. So they're very important. So what you want to do is just fill all these with civilian factories at the beginning. You can see I'm making all those, and it will take a while to complete. 675 days for the 3 in Chaco Astral to actually complete. But there's ways to speed that up a bit. We do have quite a bit of political power now, so we can add something. I don't really need to go... I want to go fascist, but I don't need that right now. So I'm going to go industrial because I'm actually researching the industry here, and that actually took that down by 10% that time for all of the industry now. For everything in here, it actually saved me a lot of time. And so we'll wait for this one to be done, and then I'm actually going to get this one. This one's negative 3% to research time, 3% faster. It takes a little while to research. When you actually go to research something, and you can see it's like 1940 and all this, like, you can actually research it well before 1942 or such. But as you do, as you can see, this one has 567 days, and it has a penalty for being ahead of time. So you actually research it slower, or rather, it takes longer to research if you have that time penalty. But it can be done, and most of these national focuses actually speed things up, like speed the building of things up. And I don't have a national focus because I'm talking too much. But now I'm going to go down industrial effort. This is 50% research to industry research, but only for one thing. But the rest of this is really good. This builds civilian factories for you. This builds mostly military factories for you, except for the construction. And then I can get extra research slots as well for these, which speeds things up a lot. And I don't have that yet, and I like to save it for this one so that it goes quick. So we'll get construction for now, which just makes our civilian factories build faster. Then there's your economy. And right now I'm using 30% of my factories for consumer goods. And civilian and military factory construction speed at this is 30%. I'd like to go to partial mobilization, which increases the speed of your construction vastly when you do that. And the consumers actually get less factories, which isn't really detrimental. You just can trade more, essentially, after that. You can also go to free trade as well, which takes more of your resources to the market. So you actually gain less steel and such, but things go faster. Research time goes faster. Construction, factory output increases. But I don't have a lot of resources to actually do that. And now I'm going to go down construction effort. And that will give me 1 civilian factory. We'll speed things up. I have plenty of political power now, so I'm going to use another one. And again, I'm not playing probably as efficiently as possible, just because I'm talking. If I was doing this on my own, I would just be flying through it, essentially. And so, basically, we're getting ready to attack Chile. To do that, we need to be fascist, because right now we're neutral, and we can't claim war on somebody if we're neutral. until world tension is at 50%. So we want to go fascist. Fascism is good because you can go down this fascism tree and it will basically make your country fascist, and it gives you a lot of recruitable population. Because right now my population is 12 million in Argentina, but the actual recruitable amount is only 180,000 men. And I only have 57,000 men left to actually join the army. We're going to get rid of the fighter and the close air support here. And what we're going to do, as those were stationed there, and we're going to bring them over here. We're going to bring all the fighters and another air wing. And we're going to take this fighter here, and we're going to call it right over the city of Santiago. And as you can see, then this tree here pops up. And if that tree isn't there, you can essentially just hit the air tab, the strategic air mode, and then click this region where you put those, and that'll pop up. And so we want these on air superiority so they shoot down fighters and secondarily bombers. You can put it on interception, and you can just focus on bombing, but there's really going to be no bombing going on from Chile. So we're just going to do air superiority, which can give you a bonus to your planning when you actually go to engage. You'll have this bonus, and you'll do better just because of the recon and the air superiority factor of it. And our close air support is just going to be focused on just ground air support, not going to be naval striking, not going to be port striking. And so those actually take time to deploy over there. So they'll be over there on August 31st. So just a couple days to send those planes on over there. You can see my production efficiency cap is now maxed at 75%, and I'm producing 13 a day, and earlier I was producing only 9. But that will stay there now until I get that cap up more, which is what this whole tree is essentially about, is production efficiency. And we're going to do construction effort 2, which just gives us another civilian factory. We want to go down here first so we can get that extra research slot. And now I'm going to get my fascist demagogue. Now this is really important here. Ethiopia was lost to Italy. That's Italy's first thing, is that they want to take over Ethiopia. But this is extremely important. Fascist, if you want to go fascist, go the fascist demagogue in your political advisor. And when you click this, you're going to get this. And it says the younger generation will take up the torch, and you will get a fascist coup if that happens. That means your country's going to split in half. Half your army will fight your other army. That is not good. So you want to click the higher-ups may harbor unspoken sympathies. Just don't even click this one. So top one for now, and later we'll get more messages on that as our political ideology changes more to fascist. Fascist is the brown, and it will go up here pretty quick now, as every day we gain 1/10 of a fascism support with that demagogue in there, that political advisor. So now we're going to get concentrated industry. There is concentrated industry, which increases your factory output by 20%. You make more stuff. Then you can put more factories in a state. So that's why I said basically just cover all of your states in civilian factories. To some degree, some countries you might want to get some naval ports as well to get a good navy going. But for the most part, civilian factories first. Make sure you have some naval ports in there as well. But and then there's dispersed industry. Dispersed industry doesn't increase your output as much. It does increase the max factories in the state the same, but basically what it's for is that you are on the defensive in the sense that since your industry is dispersed, factory bombing vulnerability is down by 10%. However, with dispersed industry, you have efficiency retention, So when you change to a better weapon, you actually retain some of that efficiency, and your efficiency will go up just better. Your efficiency is a little bit better, but concentrated industry I feel is where it's at, because the additional, this is only 10% factory output, and you can see it's all 10% all the way down, plus 10%, plus 10%, and this is 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. So it starts to add up a lot more than dispersed industry. It's really your preference, but I feel even nations that are getting bombed a lot benefit better from concentrated, just because you can produce more to defend yourself. But it's up to you. So some of these infantry are being produced now. I still have a lot to go. Actually, you know what happened? Let me just cancel the rest of them, and I'll add these to the army. So now there's 15 out of 24 in there. So what we need is to produce up to 22. Or rather, no. Yeah, 22. And so what you want to do here is if this is left at where it is, and I did leave it there, it will just infinitely produce units, that many at a time, if you have the resources to produce that many at a time. So what you want to do is just hit it to 1, and it will produce that many. And that's what I should have done, is left it at 22, because I already had 2 out, and that would have put me at 24. And if I would have just switched it to 1, as they're built, they disappear. These disappear and go away, and it would just leave me with 24, which is all I really need. And so we're still researching here. Now the research is getting a little bit farther down. It's taking a while. 118 days isn't that bad, because it's only 0.14 years ahead of time. But it starts to really add up quick if you start to just really blast down a tree like that. I find it really best to get your industry out of the way, unless you are maybe certain nations that are about to be attacked pretty quickly, like historically, just because the more production you have, the more stuff you have before you go to war, the less stuff you're gonna run out of during the war, because you will essentially run out of stuff in the war. And if you fight too long, it's hard to keep up your production. And so now we're going to continue down, and these two here are infrastructure support. So they just actually add infrastructure to your nation. And the infrastructure tab, you can go to construction and the train tracks, and you can see the infrastructure. And the higher the infrastructure, the better your units move on it. They move quicker on it. And as you can see, you can't really actually see it with Brazil, but in the Amazonas, there's actually 0 out of 10 infrastructure. And if your units get caught up in there, it will take them days and days and days to move. So you want to, if you take over Brazil, or you actually play as Brazil, you want to get infrastructure in there pretty quick. Otherwise, you basically can't move. You're just going through the jungle with no roads, which is, I would imagine, is not very easy. So we're going to get concentrated industry again. And now, after we get that concentrated industry, you have 20% more factories available in a zone. And so there's only 3 here, so 20% didn't really work, but there's 7 here, so that gave us an additional 1 here and here. And as you get it, 20%, 20%, 20%, you can start to build quite a bit. And we will start building military factories after that. We don't really need to build a military factory right now. We're just trying to get our civilian factories up. We can just put them down for now, but there is in a queue. You can actually raise it to the queue. Sometimes I like to actually just build a civilian factory, then build a military factory, and you can kind of like stagger it like so. And so when this is done, it'll build me a military factory, and then a civilian, and then so on. And that way it's kind of a good mix of both. You have anti-air and other stuff as well that I can get into after a bit. This means that we're getting close to being fascist. And that's just about it. As you can see, the fascist ideology is growing in the pie there. I have quite a bit of political power, so I can change some things around. This is your conscription laws, which you can add more men to your available manpower, but eventually you will receive negative benefits from increasing your conscription laws. Disarm nation is useless. It recruits 1% of your nation. The only nation in the game, I believe, that starts with that is the U.S. And so why it's even in for other nations, I'm not sure. It does nothing for you. You don't produce faster or anything like that. There's no benefit to getting disarmed nation. So generally you start on 1.5% recruitable on volunteer only. So we can go to limited conscription, and that'll give us another 1%, which is actually pretty significant considering out of 12 million people. So right now I can recruit 88,000, and after that 209,000. So 1% is goes quite a long way in terms of millions. This will help me research infantry stuff faster, which is not going to help me right now, but that's okay. Now we're doing infrastructure 2, which will just add even more infrastructure to various places of Argentina. Not all that useful in the beginning of the game. You really don't need the infrastructure all that much unless you have zero, like Brazil. I think Brazil is maybe the only place in the world that has zero infrastructure. Maybe Saudi Arabia. Not really sure. I'm pretty sure only Brazil. Maybe Central Australia, not sure. But either way, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this video right here, and then we're going to continue from right here, and we're going to continue working on our military and just increasing things overall. But I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. If anybody has any comments too and thinks that maybe they have a better way of doing something or wants to give a tip, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section, and just help out all the new players that are coming on in. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.